APLD has broken through the resistance that we had marked up here, guys. Very nice price action. So let's try to push us down below the support level, and we see a drastic gap up and continuation. Find a little bit of resistance around that 1320 level. A little bit of back and forth today, but you see sellers try to push us down. Buyers find that support around that past resistance and push price back up. It's a little bit of indecision, but should we expect buyers to continue their movement up, reach that point of 1542, or are sellers going to regain that control and push us down back within this pennant range and possibly below that? All right, guys, starting this analysis on the weekly, some of you might be asking, why did we see such a drastic gap up? Well, APLD gapped up after announcing two massive 15-year data center deals with NVIDIA worth an estimated $7 billion, which was sparking investor excitement and analyst upgrades. So we did get that very drastic gap up. If we look back on the daily quickly, guys, we're talking about roughly that gap up alone being around the point here and here, around a 20% gap up, and we had that continuation up to around a 30% movement. And we see on the weekly that break of that resistance we were touching on in the last Applied Digital video. We see that buyers really try to run with that gap up and breakout, right, peaking around that 1420 level, but we did get shut down quite hard once we hit that level, shutting all the way down to around that 1250 level. But we've still gotten that break. It seems like buyers are trying to hold us above that level. And if we look in the past, we saw a bit of chop going on, and we did form a descending channel-like pattern. See that this stock is quite volatile. It's a choppy stock. It's not a stock where you see these prolonged times of tighter price action or not a lot going on. Stock is very choppy and exciting, so we've gotten in this descending range, hit that bottom around that $3 psychological level to 340, and then we get the bounce there, propelling us all the way to the all-time highs of 1542. We find some pretty strong ascending support, and price kind of chills out, not as volatile, kind of climbs that ascending support out. See a slightly volatile move as we have to break that descending channel resistance here. Continue our move above that $7 level, that being a pretty stubborn level for the stock historically. So our sellers try to find their movement down, but buyers win that fight, gap up, and see a drastic movement all the way to that 1542. That was in 1 week, guys, that being around a 130% movement for the stock. So a lot of buying pressure and volume really seeped into the stock at that point. So I was trying to get that shut down. They can only shut it down so far, roughly half of that movement. Meet back up with that ascending support. That's where you see that very nice buyer move up. Get a bit tighter within that range, and then sellers try to push us under that support level, and then buyers buy it up. Get that gap up with that good news and continued move up, breaking through that resistance. So textbook stuff, weekly looks very nice here as we continue our movement out. See a little bit of selling pressure there, but as long as buyers can continue using this past resistance as support and they can continue making higher lows, stair stepping up, definitely looking nice if we can build a range higher and above this pennant like structure. All right, guys, on the daily, we see a better perspective of that breakout, right? We found that ascending support, kind of riding on that quite tightly given the past price action and the volatility that we saw there. Have to make a move out, so we see an obvious green wide bar, shifting price momentum, right? That being a very obvious break of that overall range. See some tight price action, then boom. Once we have to make a move, buyers make that move. We hit off an important resistance around that $7 level, so we get pushed down. Buyers try to buy up, see that selling pressure, try to get above there, and sellers push us back under that level. Buyers don't take that well. We see that gap up and huge continuation to all-time highs. Then we get a movement down, meet back up with that ascending support that was so strong here, right? We don't even see price trying to get below that once. We see how strong that ascending support was, so we meet back up with that. Follows up a very nice drastic move out. And the first time we really try to bleed under that ascending support, the first drastic movement under that support, right, we close 1 day slightly under that and close a second day under that. And then boom, very nice news as well as buyer reaction to that support being broken after being so strong the entire time that it was created. We see a very drastic gap up, right? We looked around 25 to 30%. Continue movement out, so buyers really try to use this opportunity to propel stock all the way to around those all-time high areas. Couldn't get that, but we do hold quite nicely. Buyers do remain that overall control, closing around that 1320-ish level. In the most recent day of price action, lots of indecision and very volatile. We see sellers push it all the way down to this resistance level. We see buyers push it up to around that 1320 range, but we do close at that 1252 level, showing that there's a lot of back and forth here right after a very drastic gap up. But buyers are looking nicer here as we use this resistance as support. Typically with a very big gap up like this, especially out of a range like we see here, you'd see sellers try to step in here, possibly getting a move right around that resistance, closing stronger here, closing around the 1160 to 1140 level. But we don't see that. We see buyers regain most of that control, closing quite nicely at that 1252. So short term looks pretty good, right? We're very volatile. Still, you see that volume creep in, volume blow up as we get that gap up movement. If volume can really surge in here, as we've seen volume at higher points, when we got this huge breakout volume hit all-time highs, really soaring up, kind of just declined from there, stayed stagnant, and then we saw that solid volume volume once we got that move up recently. If we could see volume really surge in here, we could be seeing a retest of all-time highs around that 1540 level and a continued movement up. You see, we are met at this pretty important resistance of around that 1250 level, kind of where we wicked off last time. We were in this descending range. We prematurely tried to break it, hit it right around that level. We got that big rejection, took us further down until we found this ascending support and we got that move up. So we are right around that. So that is a pretty obvious resistance zone. If we can break through that cleanly, not a lot to worry about up until the point where we wicked off right here, talking around that $14 psychological level. Past that, we would be looking nice for those all-time highs, retesting that and trying to get above that. Do have certain data points, but we are still very volatile. Lots of back and forth going on since we broke out of that range. So we need to see buyers hold a stronger base, possibly make support out of that $12.50 level, start to trend up in a stair-step-like pattern. We'll have to see what happens within the next few days of price action. I think that buyers do hold a bit higher here and continue their movement up. All right, guys, on the hourly, we see that ascending support try to get broken through. So this entire time that we've had this ascending support, like we mentioned, really not trying to get through it. We see on the hourly, see a very small wick right here, but really no price action trying to break that ascending support. We see how strong that's been, and that ascending support led us to that huge rally up to the all-time highs. Instead of retracing more, we meet back up with that ascending support, and we get a bounce there once again, right around that $9 psychological level. And then we get pushed up. We're forming tighter, and this is where we thought we'd see a squeeze-like movement, kind of like we said in the last video, right? We're getting tighter within this range, get a bit tighter, meet up with that resistance and support, then get a move out. But we did see that sellers try to push us under that support. The first actual time that we got a pretty solid move out of that support. We've never really seen price action like this. We saw a little wick under there, but we've seen closed candles now under that very strong ascending support. So how do the buyers react? With a drastic gap up and continuation to around that $14 level. So the buyers really don't like that the sellers try to push us under this support. Also with that very nice news with NVIDIA, both those combined really gave us a very strong movement to the upside. And after we got that movement, we see we're in a little bit of a descending like range, but once the sellers try to push us back within this range, we see around that resistance level turn into support, get a nice little movement up, and then in the very short term, we are in a little bit of an ascending range here. So we'll see if that can hold, see if buyers can reclaim this 1250 as support. Begin a bit of a stair-step pattern, right? Nice move up, small retracement, nice move up, small retracement. Nice move up, trying to break through these previous most recent highs and kind of continue like that in a stair-step like fashion. So I think that is pretty probable. We are in a very volatile situation here where bears could try to find a rejection right at the point we are at right now and then kind of continue us down in a descending stair-step like fashion. See if that $11 level could hold, or the top of this kind of general consolidation range around that 1150. If that couldn't hold, we'd kind of be headed to the 1050-ish level. But I do think that given that nice breakout, given that very nice news, guys, and how buyers reacted to sellers trying to push us under that strong ascending support, I think we do look a lot better for the upside here. So I think that we do kind of find ourselves in a bit of ascending range. Try to break through that 1405 level. If we could break through that, guys, looking very nice for that retest of 1542. Trying to get those new all-time highs. So let me know your price predictions in the comments below for APLD. I think we're looking pretty good here, guys. Good news as of recently. Very nice breakout. Very strong movement from the buyers. Bit of indecision. We are very volatile here, but if we can see volume start to flush in and buyers start to make a base, get within a stair-step like pattern, possibly setting up, break through that more recent resistance of 1405. Definitely would be looking good for a retest of the all-time high area and getting above that. That's all I got for you guys. If you want me to continue to make APLD content, make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, trade smart. I will see you all in the next one.